Hello, everybody. Josh Brown here, back for another great episode on Franchise Euphoria. Well, today's episode is brought to you by IndieFranchiseLaw.com, a leading resource in the franchise space to help you if you're considering buying a franchise, turning your business into a franchise, or growing your business through a licensing or franchise structure. So go on, check it out, IndieFranchiseLaw.com. I think you'll find a lot of valuable and free information as you continue to kind of weigh franchising and licensing and the growth of your business. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy today's episode. On today's episode of Franchise Euphoria, we've got a unique one for you here today. I'm interviewing Don Gilmartin, who is the co-founder of TraumOne Franchise Systems. 27 years, he's a builder, developer. 2013 became an independent restoration contractor for fire and flood. And then 2015 added a crime and trauma scene cleanup division that in 2019 he turned into a franchise. That's right, a crime and trauma scene franchise. This is a unique and interesting interview. And without further ado, enjoy this one with Don Gilmartin. Hey, Don, welcome to Franchise Euphoria. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to hear from you.
Well, yeah, great to have you on. You're the co-founder and gonna talk to us about TraumOne franchise systems. But you and I kind of go back a little bit. We first talked a year or so ago, and maybe even longer, maybe several years ago, and you were contemplating this concept, and then now you've not only gone through with it, but now you're an emerging franchisor.
I am.
So tell us what it is and what you're doing in your past and all that great stuff.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. It's super exciting to be able to just kind of put this out there for everybody to understand. But I've kind of always been an entrepreneur. I've been in construction development and real estate for forever. Back in 1980, I met my current business partner, Kurt, who actually was more the contractor, and so together we established an event and promotion business just to get the real estate off and running. So we kind of have a marketing background, pretty strong. And we rode that all the way to the crash in construction. And in 2008, when it crashed, we just had to figure out a way to survive. And so Kurt became an insurance adjuster, which is a good basis for this business and this model. And in 2012, we actually took our construction experience and began a fire and flood emergency response company service, kind of, for floods and that sort of thing predominantly. It was predominantly so that we would never feel an economy crash again because it's insurance revenue driven. So with that, in 2015, purely from an economic point of view, we started doing crime and trauma scene cleanup. So we had three legs to our company. We were fire, water, and trauma. Again, the reason was purely economical. It was because the margins are so incredible in it. And so we had no idea how to actually go out and do crime and trauma scene cleanup other than our training. And so I met a few people that would sort of kind of feed the industry, not in the typical way. And, I asked for some introductions. And after certification, what actually took off was a passion for a business that we never expected would happen with an incredible employee base. And essentially in 2018, I cannibalized that company and kept the trauma side and decided to go out and franchise it. So the cool thing is the outcome. And without typically a law enforcement sort of a connection to the business and first response is what's typically utilized. But what makes us so unique is that I went out and modeled it in a non-traditional way. I modeled it after the funeral industry. So that became my basis. And we didn't know it. What we were essentially doing was, while we had our systems and procedures and operations going with all of our employees, we were setting the standard and building our own model for a franchise.
Well, to step back for 1 second and talk, because for people who aren't familiar, I get asked a lot, what's the most unique franchise you've ever worked with? And I can remember years ago working with another trauma type franchise, and I thought it was pretty unique. So for those who aren't familiar, tell us about what TraumOne franchise is. What is it?
TraumOne is a crime and trauma scene cleanup service, biohazard removal. Imagine, if you will, anything from a typical crime scene that needs to be cleaned up, or even extreme rodent sort of cleanup, anything that's biohazard, or a drug raid. All of those need to be cleaned up, and they take certifications, and it's a specific OSHA backed, and mandated sort of industry that does these sort of cleanups. So it's rather unique. It is got a janitorial in nature sort of service to it, but it's terribly unique, and obviously you've got to have certifications and professionalism to back it up. But it's basically what you kind of might know of as crime and trauma scene cleanup. That's the best way to capture an audience for getting them to understand what it is.
But prior to getting into this, you were in the restoration business. You had a restoration, maybe you still do, maybe you still have a restoration business, but now you've transitioned a bit to focusing on the crime and trauma franchise that you've created. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually were doing it. We started it almost 5 years ago within that private model, if you will, of restoration. So
Okay.
some restoration companies will do it. It's very few and far between. But again, we did, sort of fire restoration, flood restoration, and then trauma. So we were doing all three under one, independent company, just our own business. And what happened was we started really finding that the trauma division of our company was so rewarding, and it just became a passion for everybody within the company to just want to do that more than anything else.
So the idea here in terms of working with franchisees is this is a unique offering. So what type of franchisee are you looking for, or who would be a good fit to come in and be a good representative of this model?
Yes, typically it is somebody who has law enforcement connections, or helpful funeral industry representatives, or employees or owners are really helpful as well. But it's got about 8 different verticals, if you will, and real estate, damaged property. If somebody dies in a piece of property, it damages the property. So real estate is also another one of the verticals. And believe it or not, one of the most interesting ones is anybody related to the auto industry, because autos get damaged from these types of events, whether it's even as simple as an accident in an auto. That is a biohazard. When somebody bumps their head and bleeds inside of a car, it needs to be cleaned up. And the insurance companies, they will pay a biohazard, restoration contractor to come in there and do this and get rid of the biohazards in the car. So that's another real interesting side of this is, towing industries and auto industries and auto repair. Big part of it. And certainly anybody connected to an insurance industry is a great profile as well.
So talk a little bit about just the whole process of turning, of taking a business and turning it into a franchise and what that's been like. I mean, there's a whole lot of people listening who are in that boat of contemplating turning their business into a franchise, or maybe they recently have, but talk a little bit about what that process was like and some things you learned along the way.
Yeah, it's been a super exciting side of it, because we realized that we were already really good at systems and procedures. And so that was real apparent as I started to sort of discover what franchising was. I understood, well, we've already got that. We've been doing this for years. We've been managing people and dealing with clients' expectations in sort of a system. So that was a real interesting part of this. What I really liked about franchising more than anything else is I love entrepreneurs. I've been one my whole entire life. I'm excited to speak to them. So the idea of franchising in general, basically is built on the backs of entrepreneurs. And so their energy is really important. And interacting with them has been probably the most unique side of learning, is how to take an entrepreneur who wants your idea and your concept and just work with their energy to show them what you do, so that they become as passionate as we are about what it is that we do, and then they want to do it. So that's been probably the the biggest learning curve, and it doesn't even feel like one because it's just natural to work with entrepreneurs for me.
Well, because you've been doing crime scene cleanup work since what, 2015,
Yes,
roughly?
yes, yeah.
Okay. So have you built a proprietary system or model around that? Talk a little bit about that. Obviously, you can't give away the secret sauce, but in terms of the what a franchisee is going to get if they become part of the model, and then how, I don't believe this is a brick or mortar type model, right? I mean, you don't. This is not retail locations.
No, it is not. It is actually, what's cool about it is our particular system is rather unique in the service industry. What is gaining us so much traction right now is a typical franchisee in a service industry will have to literally do everything, and this is what makes us kind of unique. First of all, kind of going back to the basis of what we are that makes us different than anybody else who does this in the industry is that we are very compassion driven. We are very client protected. We are about we're sort of like Papa Bear. We call it the Papa Bear theory within the company. We literally watch over our clients when they're going through these traumatic events. And that is everything from making sure there is no photography. There's a lot of voyeurism in my industry. We stay away from all of that. We just completely protect them. We make sure nothing goes to social media and it is all guarded. So that is a protection that makes us really different, as well as offering services. So we're not just janitorial. However, when you start to talk about how and what a franchisee gets is, first of all, you need to understand that concept that we are compassion driven. We hashtag and just literally put out compassion first all the time because that's our main driving force and we stand behind it, even as much as we, actually even have a 501c to help support people that have gone through these traumatic events. However, that being the case, what a franchisee typically gets here is a choice. When you come in to step into our model, we have either operators or marketers. What's nice about that is the operators are the people that you would think literally, these are the franchisees that literally run the trucks, run the crews, do the cleanups, deal directly in the field. Everybody is trained the same way, but the marketers who are still buying franchise territories as well, they are actually more PR driven, brand building. They're those boots on the ground that are, shaking hands and getting the brand out there and getting the PR up to the point where we're social media and becoming relevant from a brand perspective. So they become partners. They actually start one territory sitting next to another territory. They use each other. They need each other to survive. And so that's what's made our franchise actually start gaining a lot more traction than what you typically see out there, because it's kind of made the operator, they could rest a little bit knowing it's not 100% on them to actually do their networking and marketing as well, because they've got a strong force sitting right next door in another region that is actually relying on them to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you just got the paperwork and everything filed. How recently? I mean, when did you officially become
Yeah,
a franchise?
we were launched on July 2nd. I'll remember it forever because it was my daughter's birthday, my baby. And July 2nd, we were officially launched. And by the time we actually took in our first franchisees into training was at the end of September of 19. We trained them, we put them out there, and that was two. That was our first two, and we're already at seven right now, 7 units, and now we actually have seven full franchises running right here in Southern California. And now we're actually going into the end of the first quarter. We're going to bring in three more. So we're going to have a total of 10 by the end of Q4.
All in California,
All in SoCal right now. We registered in California. We took the extra time to register in California.
which is no small
It is,
feat. I can attest
it's
to
a,
that.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But we did it, and it was done so that way we could really build a strong footing here, because if you could do it in California, you could probably do it just about anywhere.
Yeah, so I mean, what's your goal in terms of when you fill out California? Where are you go? Are you looking to just kind of slowly go east?
Yeah, it's pretty strong in the Sun Belt, but we're gaining so much traction, so quickly. I think what's most important right now is just to manage what we have and bring on individuals that understand you're on an emerging concept here in a rather unique space. There aren't many that franchise out and no one does it the way we do.
Well, talk about that because that's one of the things I like to get on this show is tell me what's unique about your system in and of itself is unique because I can almost guarantee you that anybody listening or those who think about franchising at the top of their mind is not crime and trauma scene franchises. I can tell you that, so
Right,
that in and of itself is going to make it stick out.
right,
But in addition to that, in addition to the oh wow, I didn't realize that that was a franchise. What
right.
other attributes make you unique?
What makes it unique is that it is, I literally, and I do a lot of public speaking. So when I do, I literally, I am Italian, so I use my hands a lot, but literally my right hand will stick out over here on one side, my left on the other. And I say, typically what you know of crime scene cleanup is everybody here on the right. They're law enforcement based, they're connected, they're mom and pop. That's the basis of the industry. It's kind of unregulated and it sort of runs. Pricing is all over the charts. There you are. My right hand right now is waving, even though you can't see it. It's all out over there. But then there's us. And we sit here on the left because we are completely compassion driven. And when we speak to franchisee potentials or any of our clients, as I built an independent model before I was franchising, they understood I'm a representative of this passion to really guard clients in this space and when they're going through trauma and protect them and give them resources to start to heal. And our organization is everything about that. So much so that literally, if one were to literally search the net and see what they see, we're completely the opposite of everything that they would see because we're not there to scare people, work within crime scene tape and graphic imagery. And you just won't ever, you'd never seen it from our company from the beginning, and you're not going to see it going forward. And our franchisees understand that. So that's what makes us completely unique. And I mean, literally, when people are going through these traumatic events, if they need their home sold, if they need autos sold or cars moved or animal care, or probate attorneys, anything that has to do with their care and emotional welfare is what we're all about. And we focus on it. But we also build them back because we're restoration contractors. And I don't know of any that do that. It just doesn't exist.
So if it's something in their home, right? And you come in.
Mm-hmm.
So the relationship though to get you in the house to begin with is likely going to be through the police department, the fire department, some other sort of emergency dispatch service, right? I mean to be able to get over there. I mean is that right?
Or yes, that's only a portion of it. And that's where probably I'm going to say and even speculate here, but I'm going to say probably, 95% of the industry or anybody who does this, again, mom and pop are a big force here behind this industry. It's very fragmented, but the majority of them get their business that way. We get called in from insurance adjusters. We get called in from property managers. And like I say, now we get called in from, even if you will, national auto repair companies and the like, national rental auto, companies. We get called in from way because my focus has been networking into larger pillars than just law enforcement. So when we're called in, often law enforcement has been there, but not necessarily as a reason that we get called. That's only one fraction of who calls us. One fraction.
Well, but then when they call you, then what you're saying is in addition to that, I'm trying to figure out how you get connected with the actual people who have been traumatized because, in a typical, I guess I'm speculating here a little bit, but in a typical sort of crime scene, right? The police and the other parties that are coming there to clean it up, it's um, the people may or may not be there. So how are you working directly with those people who were affected?
Well, it is an introduction. First of all, understanding your industry is important. And myself, being so network and marketing driven, I've identified that this is not just about law enforcement who will actually call and invite you to a case. There, to know your industry is really important, and to know that calls come from property managers as well, to know that they come from varied 501c organizations like the trauma intervention program or the Red Cross. They will also call you and invite you in. You will have fire department as well. You will also have property managers as well. They're a big lead source for this industry that, quite frankly, people file away from. Or imagine this, you know, funeral directors. A family will come in for a funeral and they'll just kind of find out afterwards the home is still a mess. There's something that has to be done. And again, this is not strictly and solely crime scene cleanup. These events happen when, somebody has been living in a home for a while, not watched all that often, and they pass away and they are in that home for a while. That is a cleanup. I'm not going to get graphic here, but that is a very severe
Sure.
damage to a piece of property. And you're invited in by, again, a property manager or honest to God, even an attorney. Family will come in and say, oh, my grandmother passed away, my mother passed away, and the home is still there and we haven't touched it since, we had the funeral. And so they invite you in. So it is not just law enforcement, but again, property management or hoarder cleanup is what we do. And those individuals that own those companies invite you in because it's got to be cleaned. It's all about damaged property. So when you think about it from that perspective, you're not thinking about, just the CSI unit or FBI that's asking you to come to an event like this. It's way, way more. And that's where our pillars and verticals are much, much more vast because we focus way beyond just law enforcement.
Well, and so when when you're a franchisee and you're coming into the system and you're
Mm-hmm.
taking them through a training and so forth, how are you helping to train them for all these different scenarios? I mean, is this obviously that's part of your program, but you're having to, train these franchisees for a lot of different scenarios that could arise.
Yes, thank you. And we are while we're looking and interviewing the profiles before we can even get to a discovery day, we're looking and seeking individuals that are already geared towards any of these particular eight pillars. And so we're watching for that as we start. And what's interesting is by us having marketers and operators, we've opened up the world of who can actually buy into our franchise system. That's, again, not very usual in a service-oriented system. Typically, a franchisee is expected to manage all his marketing. He has his or her marketing, their trucks, their equipment, their employees, all of their day-to-day, all of that. Well, we've created a turnkey system for whether somebody has really a drive for marketing and understands our passion. They can step in here as well as the typical operator. But the beauty is they are all working off of the same POS point, system. They're all working off of the same task management programs. We mandate and give them all of their bookkeeping is technically based. And so that is all managed for them as well. The call center, we manage all of that for them. It's a very turnkey system that a franchisee gets to step into here. What we're basically looking for is somebody who has the passion or connections into any one of these 8 verticals. And then we bring it to them because they've expressed some interest. And they say, well, gosh, I don't know a fireman, or you don't have to. Do you happen to know a funeral director or a really good property manager? Yes, I do. Great. We can develop you there. So we're looking for that as we are interviewing our prospective franchisees. And it's opened up quite a world, I have to tell you. I think that's why we're ramping up so quickly.
Well, thank you for coming on and sharing a little bit about this system, Don. If you want to learn more about it, you can go to www.traumone.com. That's T as in Tom, RAUM as in Mary, ONE.com. That's www.traumone.com. Thanks, Don. This is a really unique model.
Thanks so much for having me.
I look forward to staying in touch with you and hearing more about your expansion throughout California and beyond.
You got that. Thanks so much, Josh. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Franchise Euphoria. If you enjoyed this episode or have enjoyed the podcast in general, I would really appreciate it if you could go to iTunes and leave me a rating and review. It really helps to get this podcast out to more and more people. So the easy way to do it is go to iTunes and in the search box, put in Franchise Euphoria. You will then see my cover art and you click on my smiling face that says Franchise Euphoria. and then click on the link that says ratings and reviews. It's that simple, but boy, oh boy, does it mean the world to me when people leave ratings and reviews. And like I said, it really helps get the show out there. Once again, would love it if you would go to iTunes and leave a rating and review if you enjoyed this episode or other episodes of the show. And until the next time, happy franchising.